It's easy to cut signs with a plasma torch if you can use artwork in which the pieces are joined together, such as the City of Riverside's rain cross, and it's easy if you can use a stencil font. But it's not so easy to make signs with fonts, company logos, or artwork that was not intended for signs. An example is this sign, which is for sale, even though the inside of the letter E is missing because the font was not designed to be cut with a plasma torch. I'll explain how to create stencils with the IdeaPlasma version of MillWrite, but this feature is almost the same for versions of MillWrite that are intended for milling machines. To summarize this feature, you select the option to create stencil tabs, set the width of the tab, and then click the mouse wherever you want to leave a tab of metal. When you switch to the 3D view page and select the 3D model option, you can see if the inside sections of the letters will remain in place and if you should add more tabs to strengthen the pieces. Now for some details. If you're not familiar with CAD/CAM systems, you can let the software make some decisions for you. Switch to the Setup page and pick the Defaults tab and set the option to automatically set the cutting direction to Yes. Also at the Setup page, pick a material to ensure that you have the correct settings for the lead-in length, arc voltage, and other parameters. You will probably also want to check both of these boxes to ensure that everything in the drawing follows those parameters. Now to create a stencil that is similar to that home sign. I'll begin by entering the text. I can do this at either the engraving list page or the drawing page. I will switch to the engraving list page and type the text. Now I'll switch to the drawing page to see what the font looks like. I'll let the mouse hover over one of the polylines in the text. The parameters for the text then appear on the right side of the screen, and I can change any of the values by clicking in that area. The only font that I have that is similar to the font in the home sign is the Lucida font. To see what I have created so far, I'll switch to the 3D view page. This shows the path of the plasma torch, so I'll click the option for a 3D model. This shows that the torch will cut each letter out of the sheet of metal. This will create 4 separate letters. Notice that the message at the bottom of the screen shows some of the hotkeys. The I in the word invisible is a different color, which shows that pressing I on the keyboard will toggle the dropouts from invisible to visible. This is useful if you want to see the lead-ins or the loops around the corners that prevent burning the corners. To create a sign rather than 4 separate letters, I must put a boundary polyline around the text. I will click the User button to create a rounded rectangle with the mouse. And I'll draw a rectangle and set the corners to be rounded. I'll switch back to the 3D view page, and the 3D model shows that the inside of the O and the E are not attached to the outside piece, which will create 3 separate pieces of metal. To have only one piece of metal, I need to add some stencil tabs to connect the inside pieces of the O and E to the outside piece. The option to create stencil tabs is in the main menu, and you can create a user button on the right side of the screen for it. After choosing that option, the top and right side of the screen will change. At the upper left corner, you select the layer that the stencil tabs are placed on. Most of the time, you will not care what layer they are on, so I won't bother discussing it. However, you are likely to occasionally change the width of the stencil tab. This illustration shows that a stencil tab has both a length and a width. You set the width, but the length will change according to its location. As I move the crosshairs around in the drawing, the dotted lines show the size and location of the stencil tab. The width of the tab is currently set to 0.3 units. To change the width, just type a new value on the keyboard. You do not have to click the data field. I'll make the tab wider by typing 0.9 and then pressing the Enter key. Now the tab is 3 times as wide. I will now type 0.2 Enter, and now it's narrow. Notice that the tab rotates in order to remain perpendicular to the curves of the letter. If I check the box to restrict the tabs to 90-degree increments, then the tabs will be restricted to either vertical or horizontal. The R in the word restrict is a different color to show you that you can also press R on the keyboard to toggle that restriction on and off. There are some locations where a tab will not fit, which causes the tab to vanish, and a no symbol appears near the mouse. Just move the mouse around until the tab reappears. I will place a tab here by clicking the left mouse button, and the tab now has solid lines. And I'll put one here. Now the 3D model shows that only one piece of metal will be created. Now I will make the letters overlap one another to more closely resemble that home sign. I'll let the mouse hover over a polyline in the text and then slide the mouse over to the right side of the screen. And I'll make the spacing -10% to push the letters closer together. The stencil tabs are now at invalid locations, so I'll drag them to new locations. When you are creating designs in which the polylines touch or overlap one another, you might need to switch to the setup page and ensure that the Fuse Outside Contours Together is set to Yes. This option causes all of the polylines that are touching one another and which are set to contour outside to be fused together into a large polyline. If you set this option to No, then every separate polyline will be cut individually, and that will not always give you what you expect. After placing a stencil tab, if you want another one to be aligned with it, you can check the box to snap to others. This will create a vertical and horizontal dotted line through all of the tabs that have been set to be vertical or horizontal, and the mouse will snap to those lines, making it easy to align the tabs. If you later decide that you want to move the location of a tab, let the mouse hover over the center of it and click the left mouse button and then drag it to a different location. To get rid of a tab, drag it somewhere where it vanishes and then click the left mouse button. A message flashes to let you know that the tab was deleted. You can also let the mouse hover over it and then press the delete key on the keyboard. To change the width of all tabs, just type the width you want them to be and click the button to make them all the same width. When you move a tab near a corner, the tab will snap to that corner, and the corner will be highlighted with a circle and an X to let you know that it's snapping to that corner. This allows you to place the tab exactly at the corner. If you decide that you want to alter the shape of a stencil tab, let the mouse hover over it, and when its parameters appear on the right side of the screen, set the option to move the 4 corner nodes to Yes. This will cause the 4 nodes to be highlighted, and you can use the Move Node function to move their positions, like this. If you want to do even more complicated modifications to the stencil tabs, let the mouse hover over a stencil tab and then click the right mouse button and then select the option to splice the tabs into the geometry. This eliminates the tabs and creates geometry that you can edit just like any other polyline.